So you didn't know the victim, but when you laid eyes on him, knowing he was coming home from the hospital, as my colleague just said, he was elderly and frail.
Yes, ma'am.
It seemed like striking him was absolutely unnecessary to rob him. So why did you take that action?
Now that I look back at it, I should never took that action. There's no excuse for that.
I'm asking you why you did. I don't believe there is an excuse. Why did you do it?
At the point in time, ma'am, that's how I felt, which I shouldn't have done it.
Well, obviously, because he died.
And we are about to watch the parole hearing for a crime that I think few of us have patience for, few of us can accept, and that is when you attack and kill an 89-year-old man for absolutely no reason. Now, if you want to add an extra bit of, I think, just tragedy to this case, if that's even possible, it's that this man, he was on his way home from the hospital because he was robbed and hurt the day before in an armed robbery. And that's not all, but he had been robbed a total of 9 times since the year 2000 because he was an entrepreneur. He was the pillar of his community. He was running a check cashing business out of his home, and because of that, he was a target. And if you could just imagine the tragedy of that, of someone working their entire life to be robbed time and time and time again, but to get up and keep going, and then to have this punk end your life when you're going into your apartment after recovering from a robbery from the day before. It's unimaginable. Now we're going to watch this parole hearing. We are going to hear from the DA. We'll hear from his defense attorney. They'll make their arguments, and then we'll get a result. And I'll unpack it with more details at the end.
Mr. White, can you please state your name and inmate number for the record?
Yes, ma'am. Herbert White, inmate number 315593.
Thank you. This is a public hearing in accordance with Chapter 14, Freedom of Information Act, Connecticut General Statute 1-200, which applies to this procedure. Mr. White, if you have any questions concerning the above, please bring your questions to the attention of the panel at this time. Again, this is a public hearing. Mr. White, do you have any questions, and are you willing to proceed?
No, ma'am.
As I previously stated, this is the Public Act 23-169 hearing. It's being conducted in consideration of the parole application for Herbert White, inmate number 315593. Mr. White serving a sentence of 25 years flat with no probation to follow for murder and attempted tampering with witness. There is no victim input in this case. There is an offender accountability plan in place that has been reviewed. Shows that he has completed programming such as thresholds, voices, and tier 2. He also, DOC records also indicate he previously participated in the dog program. He's currently participating in the reintegration unit and the college program and maintains a job assignment. Utilizing the statewide collaborative offender risk evaluation system, the offender's overall score falls on the RT falls within the low range risk for recidivism. Mr. White, this is now your opportunity to express to the board why you believe you should be granted parole, and you may begin.
Thank you. I'd like to read a letter, please.
Is this, I'm going to ask, is this the 5-page letter that was submitted to us?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because we've all read it. It was provided to us well in advance. Is there perhaps a way you might summarize your statement?
No, it's all the same.
So, Herbert, since they've already read what you've submitted and they read it thoroughly, maybe you could just sum it up, especially with your feelings about what you did. Okay?
Very good. Yes.
Well, 21 years ago, when I committed the crime, I wasn't fully aware of what I have done. But 21 years later, going through my programs, taking accountability, it affected me, taking accountability for what I have done. And knowing that going forward in life, giving back is important to me. My crime I committed, it weighs heavy on me. And, I'd like to give my remorse to the family for what I've done. Thank you.
We really appreciate that, sir. And as I indicated, we've read the letter and all supporting documents for at the time of the crime, the pre-sentence, the arrest warrants, etc., as well as the packet from your attorney. So we've prepared questions for you, and we'll take turns asking those questions.
Yes,
Then we'll
ma'am.
turn it over. We'll hear from the attorneys before we deliberate. So we're going to begin with my colleague, Ms. Chance.
So, Mr. White, I just wanted to start off by getting some clarification so that we can be clear about the two offenses, okay?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So the attempt to tamper with the witness had to do with a letter that you wrote while at HCC, and you wrote it to your family.
Yes, ma'am.
Because, in other words, you wanted to sort of shut the co-defendant up. And then the letter was intercepted and you were arrested. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you had indicated that this murder really started out as a robbery that went wrong, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And you said, you were pretty honest in saying that you and your co-defendants planned to rob the victim who lived in an apartment in which one of the co-defendants lived.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you also said that you punched the victim in the face and he fell to the ground, and then you took the wallet.
Yes, ma'am.
So can you say what happened after that?
Well, after that took place, I went upstairs to the apartment. And when the ambulance was called for the victim, I stayed in the apartment. And when the victim was removed from the hallway, I left and returned back to Hartford.
But did you know at that time the serious injuries to the victim?
Can you say that again, please?
Did you know that the victim suffered serious injuries at the time?
Not exactly at the time when I hit him. I know he fell, but I didn't know the extent of the injuries until later.
And so how did you find out? Who told you?
So my co-defendant.
Or one of the co-defendants told you?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did you do?
I felt bad. Now that wasn't the, I take full responsibility for that. It weighs on me heavy still. When that happened, I was scared, and I was hoping that he pulled through. And at that time, I started making changes. I went to church. I turned my life over to God, trying to do the right things. And when I heard he passed away, I felt bad for my actions and what I did.
So how old were you at the time, and what did you do when you found out he died?
I was 20 years old when it took place. When he died, I got a phone call from a relative saying that they had a warrant for my arrest. And when they came and picked me up, I was at my parents' house when they came and picked me up.
So you went willingly, or?
Well, when they came and arrested me, I didn't put up a fight. I went willingly. I accepted my charges. Afterwards, at first, when they had me in the interrogation room, I wasn't admitting guilt right away. And then I had to do the right thing and take accountability for my actions. And I took full accountability.
Okay. So you're incarcerated now. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
And have you run into any of your co-defendants?
No, ma'am.
They're all women.
Have you heard from any of them?
No, ma'am.
You haven't. Okay. So tell me what you've been doing since you've been incarcerated. How do you feel you've been doing?
In the beginning, it was rough trying to see my way through a 25-year incarceration. And throughout my incarceration, you know, I made changes. I went to school, got my GED. I did my parenting program. I worked several jobs. I had a few bumps in the road. You know, I caught some tickets, 12 tickets that I take accountability for. Such
Okay,
as,
so let's talk about those tickets because you had one in 2018 and two in 2019 and one in 2017 and one in November of 2011.
yes, ma'am.
So tell me let's do the first three recent ones. The 2018 was the intox ticket. What happened there?
At that time, for my intoxication, I take full responsibility for. I was supposed to see my daughter, and she moved down to Florida. And I wasn't able to see her, so you know, it was a lack of judgment on my part, which was a poor choice. I decided to get high, which I take full accountability for.
And then in June of 2019, you got a ticket for Corona. And then June 25th, 2019, you had another ticket for Suboxone.
Yes, ma'am.
So what happened to you I know you just mentioned that you did not get to see your daughter, but that went on. Your intox tickets went on from March of 2018 to June of 2019.
Yes, ma'am. I think the first one was for a pruno intoxication, and the other one is my intoxication for Suboxone.
Right.
The Suboxone was because of my daughter. The one for the pruno, it was no justification for that. I take full accountability for that.
So you're incarcerated and you didn't get to see your daughter, so that went wrong. What's going to happen when you go in the community and, something, you don't get to see her? What are you going to do then?
Well, due to taking my Tier 2 program, finding better alternatives, seeking help. At one point, me asking for help, I feel like it wasn't important to me. But now, asking for help is important, to seek help.
So you completed quite a few programs. You did Threshold, Voices, and most recently Tier 2. So tell me how helpful Tier 2 was to you, especially in terms of those last 3 DRs that you received.
Well, going to Tier 2 program, substance abuse is something serious. And knowing that things get hard in life, not going to those substances, saying no, seeking help, hearing the brothers that locked up with me, hearing their stories of them going through their life situations and how they came out on the other side. I took that in, I absorbed that, and using those alternatives and not going back to using the substance.
So what are some of those alternatives?
Seeking help. Another thing that helped me was
Do you
artwork.
do that? How do you seek help?
I was go to the nearest AA, NA place. See a therapist, which was always told to me, seek a therapist.
Okay,
mentor.
so let me stop you there. Have you attended any NA or A meetings at the facility?
Yes, ma'am.
How often do you go?
And I go, it's every week. I think it's twice a week and one every weekend. In the unit that I'm in, we have AA, NA there.
Okay. What unit are you in?
I'm in the second chance program, enough.
Okay, I thought, is that the reintegration unit?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you attend meetings, NA meetings, and you started to talk about maybe getting a sponsor.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and what have you done about that?
Well, I need help seeking a sponsor. It's where do I start to seek a sponsor at? Looking for help.
What else?
Just staying focused on not falling back on old ways, people, places, and things. You know, not going back to my old neighborhood, staying away from old friends. I got a mentor that prays over me at the church I was raised in. You know, seeking help at the church.
And what church is that?
Mount Olive Baptist Church on Main Street.
Which Main Street?
In Hartford.
Okay.
Main and Battle. Sorry.
Okay, all right. Have you, so another program that you participated in was the Voices program. Share with me how the Voices program impacted you and, you know, what you learned from it in terms of your crime.
The Voices program impacted me greatly. When I first called my crime and came to prison, I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. The Voices program showed me on a greater scale of how my crime impacts not just the victim, it affects my family, society as a whole. It showed me taking accountability, put myself in their shoes of what they had to experience. And taking my losses with my family, it helped me to see how they felt. With the Voices program, the day of my sentencing, it was a letter that was read through the victim's advocate, and it touched me deeply how they felt. And they have the right to feel that way toward me, and it resonated with me to make proper changes in my life going forward, taking accountability for my actions.
Yeah.
And
So when they read the letter that you wrote, you heard their response.
yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you were saying that helped you to change your life?
Yes, ma'am.
What else?
It's going forward in life. They wish I had the death penalty, and back then I would have felt strongly, but I understand how they felt. Put myself in their shoes. You know, I took one of their loved ones, and I had to sympathize with them, the empathy part of how they felt. At
Were
one point in my
you
life,
high? Can I ask you, because this is an 89-year-old elderly victim that I'm talking about. So were you intoxicated, or was any of that involved with you when you did that?
yes, ma'am.
What were you on?
I was high on weed and alcohol.
Okay. So you're in for the murder because you were under the influence of alcohol and marijuana. And I'm just trying to point something out to you to show you the importance of what the drugs has allowed you to do. So you didn't get to see your daughter, and what did you do? You went on this year and some months spree, doing the same thing you did that brought you to incarceration.
Yes, ma'am. I take full accountability.
And I hear you, but it's, it's a little bit more than that, because your actions is what will dictate, how you go forward in your life. Right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I'm pleased to know that, you're accepting responsibility, and, despite saying it's because of not seeing your daughter why you came up with it, but, you continue to move on. So during the time that you have served, you acquired 12 tickets. As I said, the last one was in 2019. And
That's
we
correct.
have, kind of covered what you have done. What else has the program helped you to do? I know one of the things that you said is it affected your decision making.
And is this the Voices program?
Uh-huh.
Well, it showed me on a larger scale of my actions
Mm-hmm.
and the consequences of my actions. I think it was necessary for me to do this time, for me to realize my actions and what I've done. And it pointed out many things that 21 years ago, I would have never noticed. Me taking 25 years, I thought maybe it would have helped my victims, but I was wrong. And how they feel is an ongoing process of how they feel.
You also participated in the Vet Doc program for about 6 months. Can you share a little bit of what the impact of that was on you?
That program was a great program. The responsibility part of taking care of a dog, that basically it looks to you for guidance. It was a 24-hour job that I took pride in. Feeding the dog, training the dog, taking it to the bathroom, showing it love and affection. It showed me empathy. It helped me humanize myself. So to be in a prison setting, to take care of an animal, it was an amazing feeling. And the liberties I took for granted, as I stated in my letter, to have relatives that was in the service, I took that for granted, my freedom and what they fought for.
And then, so for you also participated in some other programs. You did the credit awareness and goals,
Goals group,
7 good minutes and goals rules. Tell me a little bit about those programs.
the credit awareness is vital to me. Being I came in at a young age and I get to establish any credit. It gives me a leg up on going forward in the world when I accumulate money and how to go about taking care of expenses and stuff. Goals group is another one that was important to me. Setting goals, which is something I never looked at. It gives me a sense of direction of where to go, holding myself accountable, sticking to those goals. The 7 Good Minute program, it's a tablet where we listen to motivation and taking those and moving forward. It's a peer-to-peer group that we have amongst ourselves, and we throw ideas out there of how to go into the world and live a positive life going forward.
Okay. So what was the 7 good minutes one?
in 7 good minutes. It talks about life, experience going through life. It's motivating. It talks about people going through their daily life and how they conquer certain troubles in their life. Being able to relate to what they went through. It helped me tremendously to know that there's better alternatives than going the wrong way, using those alternatives.
Do you think you were going through something in life that you didn't know how to deal with? What do you think that was?
It was poor judgment, having my daughter at a young age, not having a job, you know, just holding myself accountable. I should have asked for help at that time instead of doing what I did.
And then there was another one, it says from boys to men.
Yes, ma'am. It was another good program. Basically, it's me as a kid going into a man, the childish things that we did as kids, growing up as an adult, taking accountability, leaving those kids' ways behind, becoming an adult, moving forward, being of service to others. It's basically it showed how to get my license, which is something I never had, how to fill out applications, just being an overall man in general, how to carry yourself, no matter where you at.
Now, your job assignment, you had the trash detail for 1 year. And then what did you do with the elderly in your block?
Well, I'm considered an elder in the block. Being I've been down a long time, so a lot of guys look up to me. I give them guidance. I tell them my story of how my actions caused me to get 25 years, taking somebody's life, being away from my family, not being there for my daughter, and how family is vital. Being there to guide your kids, you know, when your family's going through struggles and not being able to be there, making it count. Not letting my story be their story. Showing them not to take that role. Look for better alternatives than what I did. Seeking help.
Okay. So you were also asked to identify a high-risk situation for you if you were to go back in the community. Do you remember what your answer was? Remember what you said?
People, places, and things.
You
Not
said
going-
more than that.
Going around the same people I was around.
You talked about your decision-making.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is, you know, if you're back in the community, and you said it would be your decision making would be a high risk for you, and you gave an example of, you know, being met with resistance. For example, if you're not able to get a job or seeing people from your past. So that was a high risk for you. So have you figured out how you would deal with that?
Well, yes, ma'am. Knowing that my crime, which will make it hard for me to get a job, just knowing that I will be met with no's. Just sticking to it, sticking to my goals, believing that God has a plan for me and a job will come. Seeing a pattern of friends that I was around, knowing that if they're on the same things they was doing before I came to prison, not being around them, being able to make that right decision. Instead of me going along with that now, saying no now, standing up, doing the right thing.
So you also indicated that you wanted to go to a halfway house and that your cousin owns a delivery service. So what would you be doing?
Well, he has a package delivery service that he does in the Harvard area, but sometimes he go out of state. So I think it'd be hard for me to go out of state, being that I signed not to leave the state. But within the Harvard area, That's a job that I will have upon release if granted parole. But I will
Would you be
be,
driving?
no ma'am. I will be with him.
Or you'd be in the truck with him?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So are you at some point going to obtain your driver's license?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So one of the other things that I read about is that they're currently reviewing you for outside clearance
Yes, ma'am.
to begin a work furlough assignment. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, to be put up for work furlough, you got to be looked at in a certain way, which is being accountable, being trustworthy. And since I've been in this prison, I work hard, hold myself accountable. I'm always professional everywhere I go, respectful. And you got to meet a certain time requirement of being eligible to work. But I work hard. And every day I work hard to better myself and those around me.
So where are you with, were you approved for the outside clearance?
Not yet, man, but it's currently in process now.
Okay. And what's the furlough assignment?
The work furlough is I leave off the jail premises and work in the factory. And I return back to the jail premises after my shift.
Do you know what factory that is?
They have numerous factories. They have one called, I think it's called Telemark, and another one that's called, what is the other one? Apologize for that. I got the Boatyard, and there's another one,
Okay.
and another one called, trying to remember the name of the other one. I'm sorry, I can't get the name of the other one.
Okay, I'm familiar with the two that you mentioned.
Okay, thank you.
Think to have heard it. Okay, so tell me who your support system is in the community.
But one is my family. I got a big support base, and they've been in my corner my whole 21 years of incarceration. The church family always has been in my corner praying for me for my whole incarceration.
Would that be like your mother, your sister? Can you identify them?
My mom, my sister, my two brothers, numerous cousins, my nephew. I got a big family base.
And have they been visiting with you at the facility?
Yes, ma'am. All the facilities I've been at.
Okay. So I think you've pretty much answered most of my questions. I'm going to turn it back over to Chair.
Ms. O'Leary.
Thank you. Mr. White, I just want to circle back to the offense itself. So how did you know that this victim had money or something worth robbing?
Through my co-defendant.
So he was coming from the hospital and you expected him to have, I guess, cash on him or a substantial amount of money in his wallet at the time of him coming home from the hospital?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. And there was an indication that you all went to a pawn shop. What did you do at the pawn shop?
Well, we was trying to use the credit card.
At the pawn shop?
Yes, ma'am.
To purchase something?
We wasn't able to purchase anything.
All right, 'cause I read the offense and Ms. Chance went over it with you a bit. So I just want to ask you a couple of follow-up questions. So you're in the reintegration unit. What does it mean to be in the integration unit? Who gets it? How do you get accepted into that?
Well, we put an application in and they accept the application, but we go through a vigorous interview to make sure that you're held accountable being in this program. You got to be held to a certain standard to be there. knowing that you're trying to make a change in your life, saying that enough is enough.
All right, so when you went through this interview, right, and I get that enough, you filed this application, you went through this interview, how do you convince them that you're now this mature person and ready to be a part of this specialized unit?
During my interview, I explained that I had 12 tickets, and I felt that enough was enough. Changing my own ways to better myself. I felt that I can't give service to anybody unless I prepare myself and better myself, holding myself accountable.
So give me a couple of words that describes the change you see in yourself.
I'm no longer that immature young man anymore. I'm of service.
You're what?
I'm of service. I help others. I'm trustworthy. Definitely I get the job done. I'm definitely trustworthy. The man I was back then is not the man I am now.
And I have a note that says you're an elder in the block.
Yes, ma'am.
And what does an elder mean?
It's basically somebody you can come to at a time of need, to get information from. Being out, I've been down 21 years, there's guys that come in and out of prison. And when they need guidance, I step up to the plate and I give them my story. Telling them that this is not a route that you want to go. You know, serving 21 years in prison and the things I had experienced in prison, going through the things I went through.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. White. I don't have any other questions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Palmieri.
Thank
So,
you.
Mr. White, in your letter on page 4, you talk about taking the RAGE program and thresholds and you're learning emotional self-regulation. Were you able to figure out what was behind your anger, what you were carrying around with you?
A lot of my rage came from trying to find acceptance. And knowing that I was seeking acceptance from all the wrong people instead of getting it from knowing that my family was there the whole time. I was lacking to realize that. And me being in prison realized that. Knowing these rages before they get out of hand and
Can
seeking
you say
better
that again?
alternatives.
Nobody what?
Say that again, ma'am?
I didn't understand that last sentence. Nobody rages, what?
No, basically I was saying seeing the rage before it gets there. My triggers.
Well, right. I understand how you regulate it. I'm trying to understand what was underneath it. Like, why were you so angry? And finding acceptance, but your family was there, so you had acceptance? Did you have a rough childhood? What were you angry at the world about?
Well, I had a decent upbringing for my family.
That's what I read.
And I was going to the street seeking help, which I shouldn't have been doing that. Acceptance, belonging.
I'm not finding that the same thing as carrying around a lot of anger.
Growing up, I had a lot of anger problems that I kept in.
Yes, but what was the cause of the anger that you were carrying around with you?
It was just anger, man.
You are trash.
Okay, I'm going to encourage you to do some work to figure that out.
Yes,
because, I know you've asked for some therapy that you want, that's part of your plan. And I think that's important. You need to unpack it.
Yes, ma'am.
And find out what was behind it. So you didn't know the victim, but when you laid eyes on him, knowing he was coming home from the hospital, as my colleague just said, he was elderly and frail.
Yes, ma'am.
It seemed like striking him was absolutely unnecessary to rob him. So why did you take that action?
Now that I look back at it, I should never took that action. There's no excuse for that.
I'm asking you why you did. I don't believe there is an excuse. Why did you do it?
At the point in time, ma'am, that's how I felt, which I shouldn't have done it.
Well, obviously, because he died.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just trying to understand, like, you're 20 years old. You probably had considerable weight on this frail, elderly 89-year-old man coming back from a recent hospitalization. And I just don't know why you needed to overpower him in such a way that you would use, a strike to knock him down. That's all I was trying to understand. What was the evidence you wanted your brother to dispose of?
It was his medication, a wallet. I think that was a medication in his wallet.
So you said from the Voices program, you learned about the vast and far-reaching effects of your actions, and you listed different entities impacted by you. You mentioned our community. Tell me what you think the impact of your crime was on the community there in Bristol.
The impact it made in Bristol was that terror was brought to their town. People not being safe in their neighborhood because of my actions. Basically, elderly people couldn't be around. That nobody was safe because of my actions.
I mean, as an elderly person, there's a sense of vulnerability anyway. To have, acted in such a way that you took someone's life causes ripple effects of fear throughout the community and further isolating elderly people who will stay home because it doesn't feel safe to be out. This happened in broad daylight. And, it's really a shame, and it's really important that you appreciate what you took from so many people in that community and how long it's taken for people to recover from what happened to the victim in this case. So you're asking for a halfway house, even though your cousin is willing to sponsor you?
Yes, ma'am. I feel like the structure it helps me, and I get to use the halfway house to give me all the resources that I need.
What do you understand about parole?
Parole holds me accountable. I need to go forward and do the right thing. I know going through parole, I can get the help that I need.
Well, parole officers do have access to programs and services to help you. They're not just there as a mechanism of accountability. They're there to support you being successful. They want that for you, and they can help you if you engage with your parole officer from a positive mindset that this is somebody else also on your support team that maybe knows a little bit more than you and can guide you. But you have to be in a place mentally to accept the help. Otherwise, the relationship is going to be years of drudgery where you're, dodging and, lying to your parole officer when you'd be wasting the opportunity that we would be affording you with a grant today. So understand that it's up to you, the mindset you take into the parole relationship. But this is somebody that can help you. They also have arrest powers. So you violate the conditions of your parole and you can be brought back to the facility to finish your sentence. So you need to take the responsibility seriously.
And that I will do, ma'am.
All right. Thank you, Mr. White.
Thank you.
Point, previously noted, there's no victim in this case, so we will afford the opportunities to the attorneys present to make a statement. We'll begin with State's Attorney Green. If you have any comments or statements you would like to make, you may do so now.
Thank you. As the panel is aware, the defendant entered Alford pleas to both the felony murder charge and the criminal attempt to commit witness tampering. The murder, as the panel is aware, occurred on September 24th of 2003. And simply put, it was a heinous and violent act against a vulnerable 89-year-old man who was returning home from the hospital. That gentleman was Mr. Tallarico. He returned to his apartment where the defendant was waiting for him with a hoodie, sweatshirt, and a mask. The defendant approached him, struck him in the face, causing him to fall to the ground and bleed onto the floor. The defendant then took his wallet and a bag and fled the scene. Mr. Tallarico subsequently succumbed to his injuries after several days, and his death was ruled a homicide from subdermal hematoma from the injuries he incurred in the incident. Until first responders arrived at that location, Mr. Tallarico lay on the floor bleeding and in pain as the defendant left. He made no attempt to call for help or take any accountability for his actions until there was a warrant for his arrest. Once the defendant was taken into custody, he did agree to speak to police and did admit to both the robbery and the murder incident. Additionally, as the panel is aware, the defendant was also convicted and sentenced of attempting to tamper with the witnesses who were the female co-defendants in this case. He did threaten to kill those witnesses. As the panel is aware, he wrote a letter expressing his desire to kill these women and, quote, shut them up by any means, end quote, to help himself. He spoke about his desire to harm these women to other inmates at Department of Corrections, as well as that letter to his family members. Simply put, the defendant, if this plan had been successful, would have been responsible for 2 further murders beyond the death of Mr. Tallarico, showing no understanding of how these actions could cause further harm to others in the community. Ultimately, the defendant finds himself incarcerated because of the choices he has made and the malice he has demonstrated to one of the most vulnerable members of the Bristol, Connecticut community. The state is troubled by the fact that the defendant continued to pick up a further 12 disciplinary tickets as recently as 2019 while he's been incarcerated, and continues to make the same mistakes again, demonstrating that he doesn't understand that his actions have direct and real consequences to both himself and others. This demonstrates to the state that the defendant is not someone who should be released from the Department of Corrections and would have difficulty being a productive member of society because he continues to have involvement with, let's say, the criminal justice system, both before and during his time in the Department of Corrections, and may continue to have those kind of problems after release. It should be noted that based on the state's review of the original file, it appears that this is the first time that the defendant has expressed remorse to the decedent's family and the actions he took against that gentleman. At the time of the original sentencing, there were several members of the decedent's family that were interviewed for the pre-sentence investigation report. And I just wanted to read a brief quote from one of the victim's nieces. Quote, "As kind a man as he was, and as gentle a life as he lived, he did not deserve to die a violent, brutal death. The man that murdered my uncle does not deserve any sympathy. He behaved like a monster and must be punished to the fullest. There should be no leniency. The court should not forget the next time this monster strikes, it could be someone from their family. I would not want anyone to suffer the pain that my family and I have had to endure over the tragic, senseless, and brutal loss of my uncle. I don't think 25 years is enough." While the state commends the defendant for taking steps to better himself, as well as engaging in programming at the Department of Corrections to address his ongoing substance abuse issues and help him to adjust to life after his period of incarceration, these steps can't completely erase the actions taken by the defendant in his past. The defendant states that he wants to be there for his family and his daughter, yet he didn't hesitate in taking the life of another person who was also greatly missed by his family and friends and did not deserve what happened to him. The actions taken by the defendant in both of the cases before the panel and his further actions at the Department of Corrections demonstrate not only his indifference to human life and his disregard for the laws of the state of Connecticut, but just that he hasn't changed from when he was originally convicted. The state would therefore request that the parole request be denied and for the defendant to complete his original sentence as originally imposed by the court. And I would like to thank the panel for its time today. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Green. Attorney Thomas, it is now your opportunity to make any final remarks or statements.
Thank you very much, members of the board. There's no question that Mr. White's offense conduct was absolutely heinous. The senseless and violent taking of an elderly person's life is an unspeakable act that causes immeasurable pain, not just pain to the victim and the victim's family, but to the entire community. And then Mr. White then compounded that harm by engaging in the deeply misguided and wrong efforts to conceal evidence, interfere with the prosecution of his co-defendants, and even threaten their lives. These were the actions of a selfish and deeply immature young man who had zero regard for the rights of others or for the consequences of his actions. However, in the words of Brian Stevenson, as is embodied in Public Act 23-169 and its statutory framework, which this board must consider, each of us is more than the worst thing we've ever done. In considering Mr. White's application for parole here today, this board must look at more than simply the offense that was committed, but also the offender and his subsequent development. The man who appears before you today is not the same reckless 20-year-old who committed these terrible acts. He's a 41-year-old man who has spent over 2 decades taking concrete steps to understand his actions, to hold himself accountable, and to become a better person. Of course, the record before you documents an arc during Mr. White's time in prison. He initially struggled to adjust, and he made poor choices, and he did receive disciplinary tickets. However, over the past 5 years, since 2019, Mr. White has had an unblemished disciplinary record. And during that time, Mr. White has faced many ups and downs and challenges in life that are even more difficult in a prison environment. I first met Mr. White because I learned that he had had a very serious knee surgery while he was incarcerated in 2022 as a result of degenerative and traumatic issues with his patellar tendon and quad tendon. After a very serious and invasive surgery, Mr. White then had to face rehabilitation. He was prescribed prescription medications, including narcotics, to deal with the pain. Mr. White had a very difficult time, and in prison, having a knee injury and having a knee surgery also makes you vulnerable to other inmates. Certainly, having been prescribed oxycodone, he could have fallen back into drug addiction. But during this entire 5-year period, including that injury, rehabilitation, surgery, Mr. White maintained this positive path where correctional officers of our state who are responsible for watching over the dangerous inmates as well as the reformed, actually took the time to write for him, not only that he was doing an excellent job, but that he has taken the initiative, and these are their words, that he has been consistent with his job responsibilities, that he would be an asset wherever he is, that he has completed all tasks of him, and anything extra that is needed is done without any issue. This is not the 20-year-old man who committed these heinous offenses. And moreover, given that his most recent tickets were related to substance use, it's particularly important that Mr. White has not only completed but taken a leadership role in the Tier 2 program, and that he has truly taken to heart the assistance and the lessons that were learned in those programs. And he has similarly excellent evaluations in the files you've received for those many programs that he's taken. Mr. White has developed empathy that was completely lacking at the time of this offense. He has become a person who there is a reasonable probability will not violate the law upon release, as he has not violated any rules of the DOC in the past 5 years. Second, under the statute, subsection F4, the benefits of release highly outweigh the benefits of continued incarceration for Mr. White. Certainly, if the state believes that there's been no correction of Mr. White in 21 years, hard for me to see what correction will occur in the last 4 or 3.5 years that he has remaining until his end of sentence. Whereas release now to the halfway house that Mr. White has himself wisely believes is in his interest would allow him to be released with the supervision, structure, and rules and gradual reintegration into society that this board has often granted through commutations or other relief, which is better than simply releasing someone to the street at the end of their sentence with a flat sentence like Mr. White has. So the benefits greatly outweigh the benefits of continued incarceration for Mr. White. And finally, under the statute, this defendant has demonstrated substantial rehabilitation considering his character, background, and history. In my view, he's demonstrated remarkable rehabilitation. He has completed so much programming, and he has done so with a great amount of insight. And he's earned his GED. He's begun to pursue higher education. Mr. White, I think very importantly when it comes to rehabilitation, has taken responsibility and accountability for his actions. He did not put the state through the expense of a trial to prove his guilt for these crimes that he committed. He did not file habeas corpus after habeas corpus alleging that the state had somehow violated his rights. He did his time. He didn't do it perfectly, but he made great improvements and substantial rehabilitation, doing his time, admitting his guilt, and I believe very sincerely showing his remorse here today. So in considering all of the totality of the circumstances, I urge this board to heed the legislature's directive to view youth offenders through a lens of growth and transformation, placing great weight on their capacity for change. And Mr. White is one of those people who has shown tremendous fortitude to overcome his challenges and become a mature, thoughtful adult who is deserving of a second chance at life. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, at this time, we will begin deliberations. Just give us a few minutes, please. Ms. Vance?
Yeah, so I think I started off because I wanted to hear Mr. White's response to the attempt to tamper with witness. And I feel he was pretty honest and clear in what he did and his reasons for doing it. I then asked about the murder offense, and he acknowledged that, yes, he and his co-defendant did plan to rob the 89-year-old victim in the co-defendant's apartment building, and that they planned to do it, when he came back from the hospital. I asked him what he did, and he specifically said, he hit the victim in the face and he fell to the ground, and then they took the wallet and fled. So what I heard Mr. White saying today is 25 years ago when this happened, he did not fully absorb what he has done, but he's taken full responsibility for the damage and the harm he's caused to the victim's family, and the community at large. And that he would like to give something back to the community in order to, amend something wrong that he has done. I asked him at the time of the offense what was going on with him, and he was under the influence of alcohol and marijuana. And so right after that, I then asked him to explain the three DRs that involve the Suboxone and the Suboxone and Prono. And he indicated that he was not able to see his daughter, whatever happened. And so he acted foolishly, but that he did realize how much he had screwed up what he has done, and took the Tier 2 program and learned a lot about what he needs in order to stay clean and sober. He has identified that he's aware if and when he goes back in the community, he'll need a sponsor. He already has connected with a mentor at the Mount Olive Church, which he has identified, and that many of the programs that he has taken has helped him to make better decisions. And since his last DR in 2019, he relooked at himself and decided that he needs to go forward in a more positive way by not getting any more DRs. And he talked about the fact that he is a mentor. He's an elder in the block that he's in, and that he took several other programs that were able to help him, such as the goals group, Rage, the 7 Good Minutes, and From Boys to Men, where he learned the importance of the transition from being a boy to a man and leaving his youth behind him and the behavior that went along with it. And, he talked about the importance of, the Voices program when he took it in 2022, how it truly brought home to him the impact of what he did to the victim and the victim's family and his community. I do think in terms of his release plan that he has identified, he talked about, I asked what would be a high risk for him in terms of his decision making. And he talked about if he's met with any resistance with the ability to obtain a job or seeing the negative people from his past, but knowing that he has a sponsor that he can turn to. He has identified that sponsor at his church. For his employment, his cousin owns a delivery service where he will be driving in the truck with his cousins to do delivery. Right now, he is being considered for outside clearance, and that if he does get that, he will be able to seek work furlough assignment, and he identified the boatyard and telemark as job positions that he can obtain. His social support in the community is his mother, his sister, his two brothers, and his cousins. And so for me, I think, in the best interest of public safety, that Mr. White be given an opportunity to be under parole supervision so that he will have the assistance of parole to provide guidance and whatever services he needs. And he will be able to participate in the appropriate programs that he needs. So I have several no contact.
Okay,
Yeah, okay.
let's finish deliberating. So I agree in that I think parole will provide a stabilizing, structured reentry for Mr. White, who has actively engaged in his own rehabilitation and taking responsibility for his criminogenic needs as well as his behavior there in the facility. And having been down 21 years at such a young age, the guidance, if he goes into it with the right mindset, will be to his benefit. Ms. Palmieri?
I agree with what that's been said. And I am also in favor of granting discretionary parole today. I do want to just comment, Attorney Taub has described Mr. White as immature at the time. I would take that just a little bit further. It goes beyond being immature when you commit a crime against an elderly gentleman like this in the state that he was. I would see it more as reckless and impulsive. I say that because I also see through some of the latter programs that Mr. White has done, that he has developed a sense of empathy and appreciation for the harm that those actions cause, not just then, but what that harm does to the community in general, especially for the elderly. The elderly are our most vulnerable population along with the old. So I do appreciate that.
Well, and I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Just at the latter programs, I provided him just a more in-depth way of examining his feelings and insights into those types of crimes.
And ironically or not enough, it was his sobriety that afforded him the programs. It was his, abuse of substances out in the community that contributed to his committing the crime, because he obviously wasn't in his right mind, but he was also undereducated. He had dropped out in the 10th grade.
Yes.
And, it was pretty powerful reading in his statement, the catalyst of being in segregation for a dirty urine that made him want to better himself. So getting out of his addiction has opened up his world and the possibilities of his future. So I have no alcohol, mental health evaluation and treatment, no contact with the family of the victim, FT, and his 3 co-defendants. I'd also like to do a halfway house if needed. Any additions?
I have a halfway house because he chose that instead of going to the cousin because.
Yeah, I agree. And I also wanted to have the halfway house. You just never know what will transpire.
Right.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So in the matter of Herbert White, inmate number 315593, there's motion to grant parole on or after today's date of December 2nd, 2024, with the following conditions for your supervision. You're not to consume any alcohol. You're to engage in a mental health evaluation and treatment as deemed necessary. You're to have no contact with the family of the victim, whose initials are FT. You're to have a halfway house placement, and you are to have no contact with your 3 co-defendants, Jessica Torres, Anastasia Gallup, and Dalitza Alejandro. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations, Mr. White. We wish you much success.
Good luck, Mr. White.
Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
Talk to you later, Herb.
All right. Thanks, Alex.
Right, in number 315593, it was under 18.
Okay, and they granted. And look, we have information on this case. I'll read it through if you want more background info. But before we do that, I'm going to try to call my 95-year young grandfather and ask him what he thinks about this case. And interestingly enough, my grandfather grew up in the state of Connecticut. Now, I don't know if he's going to pick up. This is not rehearsed. I am calling on scratch. And if he doesn't pick up, or he's busy, because he actually is a busy guy, I'm not just saying that. He's got a packed schedule and a girlfriend that keeps him young. We'll just go to the back end. Grandpa Do!
Yay!
You
I'm a sports reporter for the New York Times, and I want to get a full report on your activity yesterday.
Well, Grandpa Do, I will give you a
Yes.
report, but I'm wondering if you have a few minutes because I just finished watching a parole hearing that I want your feedback on.
I say again?
I just finished watching a parole hearing, and I thought that getting
yes.
your thoughts on it would be helpful to the community.
My pleasure.
You're not busy?
Well, I'm very busy watching the news, but I can take time off, and I think the news will carry on without me.
The news can wait.
Yes.
So let me share this parole hearing with you that we just watched, and then I want to get your
Okay.
feedback. And I think you are particularly in the right position to give the feedback. And now let me explain why. This case happened in the year 2001 in Connecticut. An 89-year-old man was coming home when he was robbed by an 18-year-old man. This 18-year-old man could have just taken the 89-year-old man's money, but instead he beat him. He beat him to death.
Oh, my.
Now, 25 years later, he has a parole hearing. And the question is, well, in short, they did parole him. And I would just love to hear your thoughts about this.
You're asking me whether I think that an 18-year-old, after serving 25 years in jail for killing a man brutally, should be released on parole.
For killing an 89-year-old man.
Yes, 89-year-old man, right. Well, I don't care if he's 89 or 19. He killed a man, and that's a serious offense. And he should be put away in jail for life, as far as I'm concerned. But if this guy's on parole after 25 years, you know, a boy of 18 and a man of 64 is a big difference. So maybe he served his term, was an ideal mate, did things there that were proper, preparing himself for getting out of jail. And if he did that and met all those requirements, I don't see any reason why he shouldn't be paroled. On the other hand, if he didn't show those right commitments and improvements, then he should be retained.
Words of wisdom, Grandpa Do. And I it was interesting. It was a mixed bag. He had trouble up until the last 5 years. He's had 5 years of doing well. I'm curious also to get your feedback. Are you growing up in Connecticut? How familiar are you with Bristol, Connecticut?
I am familiar because I had a daughter living there for about 5 years.
Oh, so in this, what makes this case, I think, even more tragic about this 89-year-old man, he was living in Bristol, Connecticut, it says, for 61 years. And he he was working until the day he died. He had a check
Oh,
cashing
wow.
a check cashing business in his home, and he was robbed. It says 9 times from the year 2000 until 2003.
Oh, my.
And tragically,
He was living a dangerous life,
he was
being exposed to all those people who came in to rob him. Apparently, it was very easy to do. I think he was very foolish to carry on.
Well, I think, well, you're right. He was on his way home. Listen to this on top of it. He was on his way home from the hospital because he was beaten up the day before in a robbery.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
But was Bristol a good city at some point, or?
It's a blue-collar city, and it's kind of out of the way. And my daughter lived there for about 7 or 8 years, and it's a long commute to Hartford, where most people went to go to work. They did have a big Crystal Mall there, not a mall, amusement park, which was very popular. As a matter of fact, as a teenager, I remember going there. It was really a neat place. We had bands playing, dances out there, celebrations, 4th of July holiday celebrations. It was a very lovely area. But I didn't especially hear of any danger there. My daughter was never in any danger at all living there. But the fact that he's dealing with cashing checks and exposing himself to people that come in easily and to harm him, he's just putting himself out there, which means that he should have realized that he's not in a position to continue. And 89 is a pretty good time to retire. As a 95-year-old, I've been retired for 35 years, so I could understand that.
Well, some people just don't know how to retire, right?
Well, I guess not, but I found lots of activity in retirement, and it kept me busy a long time. It's still keeping me busy.
That's what I said. I said, I don't know if Grandpa Do is going to pick up the phone because he's got a busy schedule.
Well, I am home. I just got back from shopping. I went to get strawberries at the store and ended up with a $60 bill. Everything looks so good.
I thought you were just gonna with inflation. Now you get strawberries and
No. The prices were pretty right. I buy the sale stuff and it looks really good. And I have a big freezer so I can put it away for a rainy day.
A rainy day.
Although it's been gorgeous here in Sarasota, we've got perfect weather. Right now, I think it's like 69 degrees with not a cloud in the sky. And it gets down in the low 60s, and it's very comfortable. No air conditioning, no heating.
Let me ask
Fresh
you
air.
a question, Grandpa Do.
Yes, sir.
If you have an opinion on it or not, do you think that crime has gotten worse over the years?
I do.
You do.
I do, because I remember as a kid, I used to go ice skating at Keeney Park in Hartford. And I would walk through the park, which was dark, after walking close to a mile, and walk through the park to get to the pond house. And there you found multiple kids, all teenagers, where we would go into the pond house, change your skates, your shoes for skates, and then with lights around, we would skate for an hour or two at night. Finish off, we'd go back in, get a hot chocolate for a nickel, or for a dime, you can get all you want. We would finish, put our shoes on, take our skates around our neck, and walk home again, maybe a half hour, through the dark park, through the dark streets. And never did you have in mind that you should be fearful or look out for someone that might try to hurt you or take your skates away or do anything. So that's the way it was back in my day. Today, you don't even want to let your kid out at night because it's dangerous. I used to hitchhike from college back to school to home without concern at all, and people would pick up and be very cheerful and so forth. Today, I would dare not think of anyone hitchhiking to get into a car. So things have definitely changed for the worse from my day.
That's tragic.
I know, it is. And you know, we lived in tenements and neighborhoods, and we used to go outside, and everybody was out there playing, no matter who you were or what it is. You all get together, and we make up our own games. We didn't depend on our parents to take us here and take us there. You wanted to go somewhere, you did it yourself, whether you used your roller skates or your bike or your legs. You got to where you wanted to go without asking a parent to help you, because they were too busy earning money, and a lot of them didn't have vehicles to take you anywhere. So you did it on your own.
Yeah. Something my kids don't know how to do.
And when we did that, we never feared of somebody hurting us or challenging us. It was very, very unusual to have a problem then. And this was growing up in a city.
Oh,
So from my view, things have definitely changed for the worse.
What do you think is the cause?
That's a good question. I think it's discipline. People were less controlled than they were in the past. People are coming from divorced homes where their lack of a male discipline has given them freedom to run around. Lack of respect. I think that's the problem that caused all this situation. In my day, it was very unusual to hear of a divorce. As a matter of fact, in my contemporaries, and I had many, I can only remember one couple that got divorced. And today it's completely different. I guess it's 50%, 60% of married people getting today are going to be divorced. That's not a good situation.
It's not.
Yeah. So that's my reason for the problems that we're having with our youth today.
Well, Grandpa,
and I guess easy access to the internet, which gives them all kinds of ideas and suggestions of non-behavior.
Right. Yeah, their role models are horrible.
Yes. Present company excluded, of course.
Of course. But the crimes.
You guys are doing a great job raising your kids.
Oh, thank you, Grandpa. Do I have?
Yeah, they're really delightful. Yeah.
I have good role models.
Yes, you do.
I think that you hit the nail on the head. It has to do it all has to do with your role models. And if you don't have if you're a single family household and you don't have any, then you're going to go somewhere to get that sense of family, and that tends to be gangs and bad influences, and it just goes from there.
Yes, yeah. I think today the opportunities for young people are tremendous with all the new technology coming up and the AI, and the military is a way to go. Gave you discipline. I know it helped me when I was in the service. It gave you a sense of responsibility and accomplishment and achievement and a feeling that you're doing something for your country, and it's a good feeling to have. And you get repaid for it as a veteran with all the benefits that veterans have today, and I appreciate that as well.
Yes, sir.
Well, I hope that is a little bit of an answer for you, but this particular case, this guy, I think he belongs back in jail, my opinion, not knowing the details and so forth, but from just what you said, you know.
It's gonna be tough. He's we'll find out if he doesn't succeed. You know, we see what's really interesting about this is we see the parole revocation hearing. So when someone messes up, they show back up on our channel, and we've seen it a lot. Especially someone who's been locked up for the past 20 almost 25 years. How do you go back into society and succeed? It's
That's another problem.
Yep.
That's another problem.
And
The ex-con has a difficult time.
Oh my God, I couldn't imagine. I really couldn't.
He can't even vote.
No, well, Connecticut actually, I think they changed their laws. I think felons can vote in Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just Connecticut. But no, you're gonna have a hard time. How do you get up in the morning and without a forced routine? You just don't know even what to do. They say all the little things.
It's not easy, that's for sure. It's not easy.
All of a sudden having yeah, it's not. It's gonna be difficult. I hope he does well. For me, it's hard to understand what causes someone to kill a man. There was no reason to do it. He could have taken the money and just walked away.
Was he on dope?
It's a good question.
When you're on that, you don't know what you're doing. You're not in control. It's the narcotic that's in control.
Right. I don't think he claims that he was. No, because they ask him, why did you do it? And he actually says, I don't know. He doesn't claim to be, he doesn't use that as an excuse, and he doesn't say that. I don't know. One might
Why someone kills somebody without a reason? That's difficult to answer.
But
if you caught your if you caught your wife in bed with another man, you might kill her, and the other guy, there's a reason.
Right.
But to kill a guy 89 years old and rob his money, that's no sense.
Right. And the law understands that you get different sentences for different crimes.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I hope I was able to help you a little bit.
You were, Grandpa Do. I appreciate you giving us the time. What are you doing tonight? You have any activities in the schedule?
Yes, I do. I have a date with an angel.
Well, I hope by angel you mean Paula.
You got it.
Okay. We don't need you go seeing any angels anytime soon.
Yeah. Out to dinner and card playing.
Oh, yeah? All right, good. I hope you win.
Well, I didn't win last night in bridge, so maybe I'll win it this afternoon.
I'm sure you will.
Thank you, sir. Nice to talk.
Love you.
Roger and out.
Oh, man, I'm a lucky guy. He's 95 years young, and he really is just the energy that he has. I don't know how he does it. He has this zest for life, and I always wonder when, at 95, but so we can go over the details. And if you enjoy the Grandpa Do stories, leave a comment. I'll read to him the comments, and it means a lot to him. Make it a creative comment, something. He really likes it. He likes it. It means a lot to him. He always calls me up after and he says, what did they say? What did they say? And I'll read them to him. So, a Hartford man was arrested Tuesday on charges of robbing and fatally beating Frank Tallarico, an 89-year-old Bristol man who had been robbed and injured only a day before. It's just insane. But as my grandfather said, like, what is he doing? What is he doing? Police charged Herbert with felony murder, first-degree robbery, and tampering with a witness. He was in custody with a bail set at $2 million and will be arraigned today in Bristol Superior Court. Tallarico died on August 2nd of head injuries, suffered September 24th. Oh, it took him a while to die. So he was really, I mean, as they said, he was lying there, dying in pain. When a man shoved and punched, wasn't there, that's actually what I'm confused about. How long? Because it says a man shoved and punched him in the face as an 18-year-old neighbor was escorting him upstairs. So if the 18-year-old neighbor was there, did he? Okay, maybe he went straight to the hospital. Up a stairway to his Main Street apartment, police said. Tallarico had been on his way home from the hospital when he had spent the night for injuries suffered in a robbery the previous day. The attacker grabbed a bag with his personal belongings and fled. Tallarico, a victim of 9 robberies since 2000, this was written in 2003, was a likely target of thugs. Where am I? Likely target of thugs because of the check cashing business he ran out of his apartment. Senior citizens do not need to be afraid that this is a case of someone running amok and targeting them. Police Chief John DeVernier said Mr. Tallarico was engaged in activities that made him a target. Police learned of Tallarico's business while investigating previous assaults and burglaries at that address. I mean, really, it does make you wonder. I mean, some people just refuse to change their, but oh man, how do you keep going and get robbed so many times and keep doing it? Tallarico lived in Bristol for 61 years. Family members in his native West Virginia were surprised to learn of his small-time check cashing business and said they knew little about his life in Connecticut. Nevertheless, his niece said in a series of emails to the Courant that she had fond memories of him. This is the same, I think, niece that left that statement today. My uncle was not a shady person. He was a very generous man. He sent everyone in his family and friends many letters filled with birthday cards, greeting cards, and well wishes, money for birthday, graduations, Christmas. He attended church regularly and volunteered there not only with his time, but was very generous in donations. Then this is the article when he was accused of trying to hire a hit person. So, a man facing felony murder charge in the robbing and killing of elderly Bristol man offered a fellow inmate $2,000 in October to kill 2 of his female co-defendants. Unbelievable. Herbert White, 20, of Hartford, is also accused of trying to send a letter from the Hartford, Connecticut Center to ask his brother to silence Stacy, his cousin, and blah, blah, blah. Both women have implicated White in the murder of 89-year-old Frank. In the October 21 letter, White wrote, 1. Find the girls and shut them up by all means. 2. Make sure the evidence is washed away. And 3. My life is in your hands, so keep quiet. $2,000. Always brilliant. Brilliant criminals. White was arrested on October 14th and charged with felony murder, first-degree robbery, and tampering with a witness. On December 9th, he was additionally charged with 2 counts of attempted murder, 2 counts of tampering with a witness after correction authorities intercepted a threatening letter and interviewed the inmate who White was recruiting for the killing. Until Tuesday, the arrest warrant detailing White's attempt to kill that woman had been sealed in Superior Court. Most recent charges add to an already serious criminal case facing White. Alejandra and Gallup each face 1 count of capital felony murder. Who ran a check Tallarico, who ran a check cashing business from his Main Street apartment, died October 2nd from his head injuries he suffered during the robbery. Police say White knocked Tallarico to the ground on September 24th and robbed him of cash, stuffed wallet as he returned to his apartment in the hospital. And you know, these, I could just picture this man. You know, it's like the people who always, like the old style, right? They can't leave their house without $1,000 in their wallet. At the time of the robbery, White was visiting Gallup at her room, and his roommate and Alejandro live across the hall from Tallarica. White has threatened the woman on previous occasions. He was charged with tampering with a witness on October 14th after the woman told the detectives were worried that Alejandro would be harmed if implicated White. An earlier arrest, they blah, blah, blah. Okay. And then ultimately, we'll go to the sentencing article. And thank you, Sir Richard. You know, if you guys realize we're going from Sir Richard to Holly, it's because I'm going back in the old spreadsheets where Sir Richard has the research, and you know, as Holly has taken over with Sir Richard's eyesight going on. But it's always nice. I always feel like, you know, going back, and it's like Sir Richard's research is there forever. Herbert White agreed to plead guilty to robbing and murdering 89-year-old Bristol resident earlier this year because he thought it would spare him decades of prison. But during his sentencing Monday, White, who entered guilty pleas in January to charge of felony murder and attempt to tamper a witness, tried to back out of the deal with the state. So there you go. The parole board didn't catch that, did they? Superior Court Judge Susan B. Handy denied White's request to withdraw his plea and sentenced him to 25 years of prison. I canvassed Mr. White carefully, she said. I went over with him the right he was giving up by accepting the state's offer, and he indicated that he understood. White's lawyer, Norman Pattis, said the sentence was harsh. Yeah, okay. This is a kid who made a mistake, and now he's going away 25 years for it. Something with these attorneys, like, I get it, everyone needs an attorney, but like, just the things they say are so he made a mistake. If he had been convicted of the same charge at trial, he could have faced 60 years. White, 22, pled guilty under the Alford Doctrine to fatally beating Frank during a robbery. Under the Alford Doctrine, okay, they didn't mention that either in the hearing. White said Monday that he entered the plea because Pattis discouraged him from taking the case to trial, telling him he was likely to be convicted. I was told I wasn't going to win a trial. White's parents, Andrew and Barbara, tried convincing Handy of their son's innocence, contending the police coerced his confession. That's a really good point. We just talked about single-family households, but his parents were both married, it seems. And he did say that he came from a good home, right? My son is not a monster, said Barbara. He's a wonderful kid, and he didn't do the crimes. He's claiming he's innocent. I mean, I'm not going to fault him on that. Handy said she would not have accepted White's plea if she thought that he had been pressured into confessing. I know this is extremely difficult for you. You love him. He is your son. This is the judge talking. But he has pleaded guilty, and if he wanted to go to trial, he could have done that. He chose not to. Both parents, along with several other relatives, hugged White goodbye. He never had to hit him. Could have just taken the money, right? Delitza, Alejandra, and Antisha Gallup, who took part in the robbery, pled guilty to accessory first-degree robbery. They're awaiting sentence. I don't know what they got. Jessica, with whom White as a child, pled guilty to murder, conspiracy to commit fifth-degree larceny, and conspiracy to illegal use of credit cards. They got nothing. 1 year suspended sentence she got. Okay. Police say that blah, 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 shared an apartment across the hall from Tariqa, and White planned the robbery. Tariqa, who had been robbed 9 times in the 3 years before he was killed, and a check cashing business out of his apartment in Bristol. Police said that made him an easy target for thieves because he often had large amounts of cash on him. The day White attacked him, Tallarico was returning to his apartment after being treated at the hospital for injuries he sustained in the robbery. Alejandro knew Tallarico would be vulnerable and met him outside to help him with the second floor apartment, police said. Once they got upstairs, White ambushed Tallarico and punched him in the face and stole his wallet and plastic bag. Tallarico's hit his head as he fell to the floor. Check cashing business is a predatory business. It's awful, but at the same time, it's not. There are two sides to the argument. Like, there are those who they're unbanked, and they need the cash right now. And it's good that there's a service that can give it to you. But you're losing, I don't know what they're taking off the top. Is it 5%? Is it 10%? Is it more? And then you're constantly chasing your tail when all you have to do is not be in that situation so you can keep all your money. And I mean, there are cities where it's like every other block is a check cashing business. And I don't know, probably should be illegal. But then at the same time, if you make it illegal, people are going to be screwed. So anyways, that's it. What do you think? Do you think he should have gotten paroled? My grandfather thinks if he was rehabilitated, he should. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. And if he does come back, we'll cover it. And with that, I'll let you go.
As kind a man as he was, and as gentle a life as he lived, he did not deserve to die a violent, brutal death. The man that murdered my uncle does not deserve any sympathy. He behaved like a monster and must be punished to the fullest. There should be no leniency. The court should not forget the next time this monster strikes, it could be someone from their family. I would not want anyone to suffer the pain that my family and I have had to endure over the tragic, senseless, and brutal loss of my uncle. I don't think 25 years is enough.